if we don't have folks healthy, right, then certainly they're not going to be at their best, both at home and in the professional environment.
Yeah.
If they don't have a strong purpose, the engagement level is going to suffer. If we're not giving growth opportunities to them and finding ways to engage them, then naturally, obviously, it's going to cause for lack of engagement overall.
Welcome to Lead From Within, the podcast for people leaders that explores the fascinating intersection of mental health, leadership, and performance. Hello and welcome to Lead From Within. I'm Dr. Nick Taylor, and in today's episode, I'm incredibly excited to be welcoming Andrew Enrietti, Chief People Officer at Viatris. Andrew is a dynamic leader known for simplifying the complex and building strong relationships through strategic thinking and problem solving. His career has seen loyal periods of dedication to companies such as Viatris, Mylan, and the Curry firm. During Andrew's time as Chief People Officer, Viatris has also become a partner of Unmind, and we're incredibly proud to be partnered with you. Viatris have included the Unmind platform as part of their wellbeing program called Elevate, which is committed to helping colleagues support their health, purpose, and growth. I'm so excited to welcome you onto this episode today, Andrew. I'm really looking forward to learning more about you and your unique and fascinating journey into your role today. But perhaps before we start, could you tell us a little bit more about Viatris and also about your role as Chief People Officer?
Nick, thank you so very much. I'm very excited to be with you today. I look forward to this conversation. Certainly, Viatris is a company that was formed in November of 2020. So we're an organization that was brought together. It's a global healthcare company. Mylan, as you mentioned, and the Upjohn division of Pfizer came together in November of 20 in a combination that brought 20 iconic brands from Pfizer into a very large product portfolio offering that was Mylan. Historically speaking, Mylan was on a 20-year journey to provide access to high-quality medication to the world's 7 billion patients. And this combination was kind of the capstone relative to that particular journey. For me, it's a very interesting company. There's a wonderful mission to empower people worldwide to live healthier at every stage of life. I think we've got our colleagues significantly engaged in building on that particular mission. And the reality is that we had the unique opportunity to pull this company together during COVID and put ourselves in a position to really be a leader in the global healthcare space. So we're excited about that. If I think about my particular role, so I am the Chief People Officer of Viatris. I am responsible for the HR function. I have obviously all the strategy and the operations of the function. Got a tremendous team around the world that helps me with that. Tremendous amount of HR professionals that are very dedicated to helping our colleagues worldwide in our effort to lead this company, Viatris. Also, I'm very proud to say that I do have responsibility for our workplaces as well. So our real estate portfolio around the world. I like to tell people that I take a people and places approach to how we're going to operate an organization, set up our organizational structure for the company. And certainly I feel like it gives us a unique opportunity to really pull together and find ways to engage our colleagues to ensure that they're at their best to help serve the patients worldwide.
It's an amazing amount has been achieved in such a short space of time as well. Incredible just hearing you talk about it, and with COVID happening as well. It's extraordinary. And tell me about your journey, because your path to Chief People Officer is not a path filled with a people background. So tell me about how that's happened and how it aligns with your own personality and goals.
So my background, I started in the investment advisory world, right? I started with a finance background. I really thought early on in my career, coming in through university and out into an internship, I thought that I was going to have a long-term career in the finance world. I was a financial advisor for 10 years, a consultant to high net worth families. Really liked the service aspect of being able to help them kind of drive their families and their wealth as businesses. And that really was a fulfilling part of my career early on. But it was an opportunity that was placed in front of me by one of our particular leaders at Mylan that allowed me the chance to kind of pivot into a whole new world. I was able to go from a regional-based U.S. company into a global company overnight, into a total rewards role at Mylan, leading compensation and benefits. For me, I found a lot of similarity and commonality in total rewards to what I was doing previously in finance. I was still able to help folks with their compensation, their equity, their benefit offerings. And it was really an opportunity to take a bit of a career risk and pivot into something new. I only was able to do that based on the support of leadership, which is why I try to instill that with my teams as well, because I do think that, we've got to find ways to give folks opportunities and allow them to really grow in their career journeys and take risks that are certainly calculated, but risks that can help them progress in their careers. And I do think you get great perspective when you do that as well.
There's something very interesting about the theme of being very people focused between those roles, and really thinking about the individuals and thinking about growth as well in different ways, and impact. How much is that role impacted by your personality? Like as a child, what were you like? How would you describe yourself as a person?
So I'll go back and we'll take a trip down memory lane, I suppose, back into my youth. So when I was growing up, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I sit here today, right, in my home office. And Pittsburgh, as you may know, is a blue-collar town, working parents who were very much interested in instilling in me a very strong foundation, right, which I believe they were absolutely successful in doing. Growing up, I was an athlete. I played soccer. I played basketball. I was playing sports. I really enjoyed the competitive nature. I have a pretty strong passionate personality. And throughout all of those experiences, I really learned the value of teamwork and working together as a team and winning as a team. There are probably two things, Nick, that I have to share that I don't talk about often, but really, as I look back now, 20 years into my career, have really formed and helped me be the leader that I am. I've had a coach when I was 14, lead a team of 14-year-old soccer players, really with an inspirational approach relative to quotes and books and movies and things that he made us do that as 14-year-olds, we had no idea why or what the rationale was. But he left us with something that I still use today. And quite frankly, I don't know that I'd be able to be as successful as I've been over the years without setting aside goals, both short-term and long-term goals, some achievable and some very perhaps unrealistic, but writing those goals on a sheet of paper and taping them to the mirror in the morning where you brush your teeth. Because he basically told us, in order for you to achieve success, you've got to find ways to chart your journey, put a plan together, and really put yourself on a path to gain confidence through achieving some of those smaller, easier goals. So that was one element for me that I try to carry forward here into the role that I had both in the finance world and certainly as a chief people officer. And then that kind of led me into a high school role on the soccer team with a coach that for the first time really got me to realize that there are times where you may have an idea of what you want to do in a profession, in sports or what have you, but really their outside perspective forcing you to think outside the box and take a particular risk. And in that case, he had asked me to move from a position that I thought was best suited for me to a totally different position in the center back of the midfield to kind of lead the team. And when I took that pivot, it proved to be very successful, both individually and for our team as well. So I take these two and I bring a lot of that forward with me in how I lead as a person, how I engage my teams, and really how open-minded I've been over the years to being adaptive to change. Because for me, change is inevitable. It's happening around us constantly. I think everybody knows that. And as leaders, our job as leaders is to ensure that we're able to navigate through change while we're able to give the support and confidence to our teams to be successful. So I would say that's a bit of my history and background on the personal side that really has grown into my professional career.
Thank you for sharing that as well. It's really interesting hearing you talk about that intentionality of setting goals. And it's something that I think we can all benefit from is that intentionality of setting, like you say, some goals are very achievable. I need to tidy the office today, and some are much more aspirational. And if we can get even halfway to the aspirational goal, we've often won as well. But tell me something about the sports comparison or the sports world in relation to work and in relation to reaching our full potential. I think it's really interesting when we think about sports. Often we think about our bodies, we think about our physical fitness, but actually our mindset is absolutely critical. Talk to me about how you manage as a competitive person your own abilities and your own ups and downs as a sportsman.
So I absolutely agree with you that sometimes you focus on the athletic world too much on the physical side, right? But the reality is, whether it's golf, whether it's soccer, whether it's any sport, the mental aspect, and you hear this quite often with professional athletes, is sometimes more important to train but less clear to understand how to get there, right? For me, I've always lived the highs and lows. And I think that some of the success is learning as a child what it's like to win and lose in tough circumstances. But the reality is that I feel like I've always found a way as a professional early in my career as a junior or more in my recent career to find a way to stay neutral, right? I'm a pretty emotive person, very passionate person, I would say. And my goal is to try to stay as balanced as possible in the mindset on a day-to-day basis, because everything around you is going to be things that can cause you highs and lows, right? And naturally,
Yeah.
if you start and ebb and flow on a day-to-day basis, certainly that adds a level of stress that's probably not healthy for the day-to-day working. And there are things that we all know. There are things that we can control, and there are things that we can't. So the reality is I try to focus on what I can control. I try to keep the mental state as balanced as possible and not react to things that happen around me. And as you grow and as you become more confident and comfortable, you realize that every problem has a solution. It just takes bringing the right people together, having the right conversation, taking on different perspective, and putting yourself in a position to make the right decision for the benefit of the company, benefit of the team, and certainly for the benefit of the individual.
And do you have a strong inner voice? Because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying there, but I'm also really conscious that I have to course correct my emotions sometimes. So, if as someone who's also very driven and focused, like I'll want to get somewhere, and if for whatever reason doesn't happen, then I can really be down on it, and then I can hear my inner voice say, "Look, you've got to be balanced, and you've got to think about it." It's like, do you practice that? Is that a muscle that you almost kind of rehearse, or is it just very natural in your personality?
I would say it's probably more natural than rehearsed, but you can't ignore the fact that just like physical training, there's mental training that has to happen, right? There are tools, there are different things out there. And in my opinion, you've got to be balanced as an individual and trying to find ways to find certain releases as it may be, or do different types of exercises, both physically and mentally, to ensure that you're physically fit enough, emotionally fit enough, and you're aware. But I would say, generally speaking, I feel like it's more natural, Nick, for me than not, to be quite honest.
Firstly, you've mentioned to me before we started you're a keen golfer. What are your sports today? What are the things that you go to?
So today, unfortunately, I don't participate in the team sports, right? For reason of risk of injury. I was able to get through a career without a tremendous amount of injury. So I try to stay strictly to golf because I do find that in the way that I operate in the professional world, I do get the team spirit and the team sense and that feeling of belonging to a team through my work team and the colleagues that I have around me. But today it's primarily just golf, and that gives me a nice release for 4 or 5 hours on a golf course out in nature and enjoying the elements around me.
I'm not a golfer myself, but I understand that it's a really psychological game. So there's a game that you've got to have the right mindset with as you play.
You find with golf, in my opinion, there are two types of golfers, right? There are the folks that are very comfortable. And if you hit a bad shot, for instance, you can, really ruin a round very quickly. Fortunately for me, I think it's another way for me to practice mental balance is that if you hit a bad shot, you forget about it, you move on to the next shot, and every shot is a new start and a fresh start. And certainly that's helped me remain competitive in a sport that's quite frankly extremely challenging, very difficult, yet for some reason still enjoyable where you go back for more.
I'm going to stay on that topic of balance there because as someone who's very focused and very driven, what is your relationship with the term work-life balance, and how do you get that balance in your life between your professional identity and your personal identity?
So look, I've got to be honest on this topic. I believe it's very subjective and personal. I also believe that I've struggled with this at times, right? Early on in my career, I was fully dedicated to work. I thought that was the best use of my time. And in my early 20s, quite frankly, I let my health go to work as many hours as possible, to learn as much as possible, because I thought the more I was engaged, the more I was in the office, the better off I would be in the long run. So it's been an evolution for me, to be quite honest. I don't know that I believe that work life has an actual balance. I think it's not an equal part scale, in my opinion. I think that each person has to find what's right for them at the right time. But I really would say in the last 5 to 10 years, I've made a conscious effort to really think about, how can I step away? When can I step away from work? How do I build the right teams around me to know that, everything is being managed and handled the way that it needs to be? Quite frankly, I think that's a big element to that, and having a strong partnership and a strong group of a team around you. But what I do these days is I try to find, if I'm on a trip and I'm gone for 7 or 8 days, certainly I've got to step out and I try to walk as much as possible. If I'm active and we've got tremendous activity going on in work, whether it's a deal or whether it's some other element, and I know I'm going to be out of pocket from a work perspective, I try to plan 4 or 5 days in advance when I'm going to hit the golf course or when I'm going to be able to spend time with family. And to me, it's very much, it's not day to day, it's more week to week, and it's certainly very fluid. And I think it'll always be an evolution, Nick. I think it's something that, different parts of the world handle it in a different way, but certainly here in the US, I mean, I think it's an evolution and will be a continued evolution for me.
I find that really interesting, that idea that, a lot of our lives, we kind of have a lot of pressure and we stay up in that pressured area. And actually knowing when that can be released is really important. It's like that light at the end of the tunnel piece. And I'm absolutely the same. I can keep the pressure high, but then I need to know when there's a release moment. And that keeps me kind of sane, actually, as I'm going through the day-to-day pressure. You must have had some challenges along the way. There must have been in your career points or milestones which were particularly challenging. And how did you navigate those? Or how do you think one should navigate those situations?
No, I mean, I've been fortunate to have, as I mentioned early on in the call, several coaches that were able to give great insight. I've had great mentors throughout my career. Sometimes you don't even realize how much mentorship you're receiving from certain people. But I've always been the type to be more vocal in my relationships, right? To build a level of trust, to build a level of camaraderie, to make sure that there's the ability to be vulnerable in the conversation, right? If you can achieve that in any relationship, in my opinion, any of the things that are going to occur, which are all very natural, and to your point, you're going to have your highs and lows, be it in a career. You may lose a certain passion. You may lose your purpose, right? But if you have somebody that you can step away and talk to in a very confidential manner, and certainly somebody you can be very real with, I think that helps you really kind of get back on the right track. And I've had several different mentors that I would say have given me that guidance and wisdom that I'm eternally grateful for. For others that are feeling the same way, I do think that there's certainly something to be said to find those right mentors that are out there and try to build a network. Take yourself out of your comfort zone and find the right people that you can engage with, because you'd be surprised when you build those relationships and what you're able to learn and bring in different perspectives. It helps exponentially, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that constant growing and learning as well, isn't it? And are you somebody who would you describe yourself as someone who is very in touch with how you're feeling and the pressures and stresses of life, or has it taken a bit of learning to get to the place where you can kind of relate to your inner state?
I would say I've probably always been relatively in touch. I think, certainly as you mature and grow and you grow in a professional environment, but in a personal environment, certainly I become more comfortable in sharing that. Maybe early on, I perhaps was in touch, but maybe not as vocal or open about it. As you get older, you kind of realize that, there are more people there to help than you would actually realize. And there are more people that have had and been in your shoes than people would realize. So for me, the more you can find that comfort in those relationships, the better you can be in finding outlets and sharing information. Because what you realize as you get older is you start to share these pieces, you actually help more than are helping you, probably. Right. And to me, that's very important.
And it's that helping other people grow piece, and that's a really nice transition now to thinking about a bit more about your role today and how you think about the workplace and your role within it. And I'd be really interested in talking a little bit about how we work as a team in the workplace. So how do we support other people? How do we support our colleagues to flourish? How do you take your experiences in team sport into the workplace?
So if I may go back a little bit, if you don't mind, in terms of kind of what happened during this build of Viatris, right? Because I think it sets the right context. Viatris formed in November of 2020, as I mentioned. That was right in the heart of COVID, right? So we were able to bring two extremely disparate cultures together remotely all over the world. 32,000 colleagues that we have today sitting in over 70 countries, selling product to 160 countries plus. And all of that had to be done in a remote setting. But we always said that we had one piece and one concept in mind, and that was a people first mindset. We engaged our leaders and our managers to say, listen, this is going to be challenging. This is going to be difficult, and it's certainly unprecedented. But if you always try to put the people at the top of your mind, if you always try to engage with them, over engage in an environment where you can't necessarily be together face to face, certainly that'll help bring down some of the barriers or the restrictions that we may have relative to COVID itself. If I think about then how that translates to where we are, right? We're in a state now where we're starting to see increased engagement. Certainly all over the world, different countries have entered back into the workplace. And, our company is one that has a very local specific practice relative to each market. And that's bringing people back together and proving the value and the need to be together. Now, when you're able to do that either remotely or in person, I think you go back to the conversation around the team mentality, right? Together, you're far more productive as a collective unit than you are as any individual, in my opinion. And if we can share with our leaders and our managers that diverse perspectives, being open-minded, allowing people to provide their opinions in a very comfortable and transparent manner, certainly you're going to gain a tremendous amount of insight that is going to help you, the individual, and certainly help the team and the company. And we try to provide our leaders and our managers with tools because obviously leadership is difficult, right? And it's become increasingly difficult over the last several years, in my opinion. But if we can help leaders really understand their role, right, both in the well-being of their employees, how they can get the best out of their employees, and give them from a top-down perspective, starting all the way at our board of directors and through our executive team, if we can give them the right tools and we can give them the right support, much like we receive, then certainly they're able, hopefully, to engage their colleagues effectively and really give them a very open and transparent, comfortable environment to work in.
You've made it sound like it was the easiest job in the world to merge the cultures during COVID, all of that stuff going on. And I imagine it must have been just a Herculean effort from everybody and tons of learning. But I also know that human beings find change hard at the best of times. And not only was the world changing a huge amount during that period, but the organization was changing a huge amount. So I'd be really interested to know, how you think mental health and well-being fit into an exercise like Emerge or just generally like around getting that high performance out of your people.
Yeah, I do feel like sometimes, to your point, I minimize the magnitude of what we were able to accomplish. I first have to say, from an HR perspective, I have a tremendous team around the world that was able to kind of assist and really be hands-on in the integration. And certainly with all of our other partners and all the functions within the company, I think that, we've got a very tenacious team globally, be it all functions in the organization. The passion is there. Their drive to the mission is certainly there. And that helped us really bring the companies together. What also helped us was the fact that there were two disparate cultures coming from the Pfizer side and certainly from the Mylan side. But at the end of the day, they both really had the same people first culture mindset, right? And that was something that was very clear to me early on that helped us because it enabled us to be a bit more transparent with people up front. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know exactly how things were going to work. And that's okay, right? But as long as you are articulating kind of what the process will look like and you're bringing people along on the journey with you, we were able to actually really effectively integrate those organizations and bring the culture into one. And our engagement levels were very, very high. When you think about the risks that we had, right? Certainly we were bringing together companies that never really knew how they were going to do this particular integration. And what did it mean to me, right? Everything comes down, in my opinion, to an individual basis. And certainly that has an impact on the overall well-being of that employee. And without that transparency and being a bit open and honest and real, as we like to call it, I think you provide a little bit of instability in that individual. Yeah. And then you're not obviously going to receive the best out of them, be it at home or in the workplace. So our goal was to provide as many avenues as we could to engage the colleagues and be as transparent as possible to ensure that both their mental and physical health was exactly what it needed to be for their own benefit, because then we knew that we were going to have the engagement and the productivity that we were ultimately looking for. And it gave us the successes that we've seen to date. And quite frankly, has really positioned us very nicely from an organizational perspective on this next journey that we're about to take, moving more into a growth phase for Viatris.
It's amazing hearing you talk about the acceptance and belief in that relationship between somebody's health and well-being and the performance at work. And I think many organizations are still on the journey to understand that and to really embed that within their culture. Did you have to, in your role as Chief People Officer, have to take people on that journey, or was just everyone already there because of that people first culture?
I would say that it was a little bit of both, right, Nick? I mean, I think the reality is that, again, I go back to the same concept that the effect that COVID had on us in a positive way, right? It really took down everything we thought we knew about how we're going to operate as an organization, made everybody equally vulnerable, and it allowed us to find a different path forward. So I think that helped kind of get us on the right path. Then certainly the benefits of being and building a new organization collectively. I think you had leaders who were absolutely more open-minded than they might have been previously, which helped us from an HR leadership team perspective. And then I also think that one thing that I like to look at as a differentiator is, my background and kind of how I like to approach HR with my team certainly is a bit more us going to the business and finding out where the business has needs and where the business can benefit from our support, as opposed to us pushing an initiative and trying to come out with an HR topic, let's call it. Once we prove to the business that we're committed to really understanding what their needs are, working with them, understanding the P&L, understanding the impacts on their people, then it allows us to have a more natural conversation around where we think we need to embed things such as health and well-being. And I'll be honest, we've had tremendous uptick from our leaders all over the world in all parts of the company, that now I like to tell people that our supply from an HR perspective certainly doesn't meet the demand that our leaders are asking for as it relates to these programs, be it Elevate, be it any of our coaching or mentoring programs, or even some of our leadership development programs that we've created over the last several years.
What an incredible place to be, and you must be so proud of that progress. And tell me more about some of the programs that you're really proud about. Tell us more about Elevate.
So Elevate, if I think about, bringing these companies together, we've had many different health and well-being programs throughout different parts of the world, but there wasn't one collective global program with global consistency that allowed us the opportunity to share the same theme and vision around the world. So, I believe it was a year or so after we brought the organization together, as we were building out some of the collective HR team, we went out purposefully to bring on new talent into the organization to help us, folks that have done this before at other organizations, and really kind of set the tone for how we were going to bring this global program to life. And for me, it's now the foundation of how we, engage with our colleagues, how we talk to our colleagues, health, purpose, and growth, as you mentioned. For me, if we don't have folks healthy, right, then certainly they're not going to be at their best, both at home and in the professional environment. Yeah. If they don't have a strong purpose, the engagement level is going to suffer. If we're not giving growth opportunities to them and finding ways to engage them, then naturally, obviously, it's going to cause for lack of engagement overall. And for me, it's so foundational and so common sense approach almost that I think that's why our business loves it so much. And it's allowing us now to roll out other programs all over the world. We set a goal, as you may know, with our partnership with Unmind and our EAP providers, to be able to provide mental health applications to 100% of our colleagues in all 72 markets. And quite frankly, for me, that's probably something we're most proud of, right? Because that was very key to us. We thought that everything that's gone on over the last several years, at least to enable them to have tools, awareness, areas to engage, what more could we do than provide some of those tools and platforms and start ourselves on a journey to be in a position to continue to evolve that. And I think we're very proud of it from the success that we've seen to date with some of these offerings.
That's amazing. And it's not going to come as a surprise to anybody listening to this that with all of these incredible cultural things that take place in Viatris, with all of the amazing journeys you have been through, that you've also along the way won many awards, from the likes of Times World Best Companies 23 list to being recognized by LinkedIn as a top company in India and Ireland. It's really unsurprising given all the amazing work you've been doing. Which awards are you most proud of, and why?
So I'll answer that question first, and perhaps I'll go backwards. I'm most proud of our next award, right? So for me, engagement is key. And I'm extremely happy with what our teams around the world have been able to do. And certainly we've been recognized, as you mentioned, in many different countries. But for me, it's always the next award, right? Because I don't want to rest on our laurels. I want our team to always be engaging. I want to make sure that we're providing the right offerings for our employees. And as you know, a lot of these awards are done based on third-party surveys that our employees participate in. That if that's the recognition that we receive, it certainly helps us from an employer brand perspective. It certainly increases our engagement levels. So I'm always looking for the next one. And if I may, I'm very proud to say that we did receive information that we are now part of the Forbes World Best Employers list for 2024. And I'm very happy and proud of that success, and certainly already looking forward to the next one, Nick.
Huge congratulations. That's incredible news. I really would love to learn more about you as a leader. And as you've been talking through this conversation, one of the things that keeps coming into my mind is the notion of servant leadership. Yeah, through all of your roles, actually, as you described going way back when, it's this idea of you're there to serve, to understand the person you're working with, be that your client, be that the employees, be that your team. And I'm interested to know, is that a concept that you've embraced, that you're aware of, or is it just that you innately have been doing?
No, I would say it's a foundation to my leadership style, right? I always tell people I work for them, they don't work for me. It's just a part of my makeup. I'm here to provide every opportunity I can as a leader to ensure that they're able to fulfill their professional desires and dreams. I was afforded excellent opportunities throughout my entire career. I started as an intern, so I have a very near and dear relationship with our internship program, because for me, that's where I received my start. Throughout my career, I had people take a chance on me. You always are in a role for the very first time, and you need to have people around you that are comfortable giving you the support that you need to fail, to make mistakes, and to learn along the way, right? I think so. It's incumbent upon me to give back to my particular team, and I do. From a HR leadership perspective, I always try to find ways that I can challenge my team to step out of their comfort zone, find a role that may or may not make sense to them, push them into that particular role, and give them all the support they possibly need to ensure their success. And if I can do that, and I can give back the way that other leaders have given to me over the last 20 plus years, then to me, that's most rewarding, most fulfilling. And that's how I'm going to ensure that our team's going to have continued success. And it's going to give, obviously, interesting perspectives to everybody on that particular team, which is only going to allow the team itself to excel and continue to win.
When you're thinking about your own personal growth, and you've talked about that intentionality of setting goals, at the moment, do you have certain areas that you're growing in as a leader? Are there certain things you think, I want to be better at this or that?
I would say that I'm growing every single day. I still have the goals. I still have a plan. So for me, I think we're always on an evolution, and I challenge myself with, again, those little goals that are going to win the day, and then certainly those longer aspirational goals that may or may not make sense. I tell people all the time, I think I may want to strive for this particular role or to achieve this particular success, but what I think may not add up to what my capabilities are. And I'm not naive, right? So I'm on a continued journey of learning and evolution. I think everybody is, and everybody needs to be. And hopefully some of the things that I have set out personally, hopefully I'll attain half of them. And if so, that'll be a success to me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea as well. It's not about achieving everything, but it's about setting out and learning on the way. And if you get halfway, then you've made great progress. I know you completed an interesting sounding course at Harvard Business School, Executive Leadership Academy. Can you tell us more about that? Is that something that you would recommend to people?
Oh, absolutely. So there's two different courses at Harvard, but we actually built and created our own program for our senior leadership team. So again, bringing the two cultures together, myself and our talent team really saw a need to kind of expose our most senior leaders to continued education, additional growth, learning, development, and help. It helped us on our journey for succession planning as well, to be quite honest. So we're on our third cohort at Harvard. We've taken now 120 of our top colleagues to that particular program. Next year will be our third cohort with an additional 60. Very specific curriculum that we've built relative to some of the things that our company and our business is experiencing. And for me, it was the first opportunity to open the eyes and minds of some of our leaders to this continued learning and development, the need for it, and quite frankly, allow them the opportunity to see how we're going to cascade this down through the balance of the business. So that's why we built the program that we did at Harvard. And then in parallel, we have now rolled out our coaching program to our next level leaders within the organization. And I believe we've captured about 250 or so leaders within that particular program. And we are honestly, in my opinion, at the very beginning of our evolution and our learning and development programs that we intend to roll out. We're always looking to enhance the offering. I think we have tremendous support and buy-in from our business leaders. And quite frankly, the custom program made sense for us at the time. Now, I can briefly say that I do know that they also provide a tremendous amount of non-custom programs that you can send a handful of colleagues to. And I highly recommend any and all programs, either through Harvard or any other university that offers that type of education, because quite frankly, it's something that's really increased our engagement and really put our folks in the right state of mind as we continue on this journey as Viatris.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That's incredibly interesting to hear about. Well, tell us about where the origin of that came from. Was that something that you felt that would be really well designed for the execs? So tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, so I mean, at the time of deal close, you were bringing disparate leadership teams together. Obviously, learning from what Pfizer had done in the past, quite frankly, and something that Mylan had not done in the past. We saw it from an HR perspective to be a significant need for us to ensure that as we were starting the evolution of some of our transitions, that there would be a significant logic for us to build a program that would ensure when we started to transition certain leaders out of the organization, or as we were evolving as a leadership team, it would give the right foundational tools needed to allow leaders to grow either in current role or in future role that they would be moving into. And for me, it was just filling a gap and a need that was pretty clear to us upon deal close.
Yeah, it's been interesting as you talk a lot about some of the questions I've asked you. You've said, well, look, this is where we've been and this is where we are today and this is what the future looks like. And I really get that feeling from you that forward-looking perspective is incredibly important in how you operate on a day-to-day basis. Be interested to know your sense as what the future holds for your work at Viatris now. What's top of mind for you?
We've certainly, I would say, set out to accomplish the integration goals that we had as an organization when we brought the two companies together. We've now significantly paid down our debt obligations. We've returned capital to shareholders, and we've set ourselves up to be on this next evolution and this next journey with an entirely new leadership team that's been in place now under Scott Smith since April. And we've really put ourselves in a path to be successful in pivoting the company back to growth, leveraging the extreme foundation and all the work that was done over the last 20 plus years to put the company in the position that it is in today. But certainly we find ourselves really at an inflection point as an organization. So everything we were building from a tools and toolkit perspective in HR enable the leaders to think and operate differently and really set us up for this next evolution that we're on. We just got back from a leadership meeting several weeks ago, and we've really kind of charted the course for where we see the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm very excited about how our HR team around the world can help enable these leaders to be successful in their individual businesses and in the collective of where the vision and strategy of Viatris is going on a go-forward basis.
And I'm sure as part of those conversations, it wouldn't be the year it is if you weren't also at points talking about the role of AI in the future and how you're leveraging AI, how you're leveraging it in your role as Chief People Officer. Is that a topic at the moment you're grappling with, or do you have clear views on?
I would say grappling to a certain extent, right? I think everybody is grappling to a certain extent.
The whole world, yeah.
From my perspective, AI for us, just in full disclosure, right? We've always used AI in our manufacturing facilities, right? Over the last several years, we've been on a journey. Certainly, from a quality perspective, we've got our operational leaders that have always been trying to find tools and technologies that can make them more efficient within the manufacturing facility. If I think about AI from an HR perspective, our journey will evolve. I do believe that AI will help us to certainly create custom programs for learning and development for employees throughout the entire organization, right? I spoke earlier about what we've done for our leadership teams, but also we've rolled out programs throughout all levels of the organization in terms of talent development, their individual growth opportunities, et cetera. That's where I see AI playing a big role for us in the future, so we can customize programs, meet people where they are. Obviously, we know we have the generational differences throughout the organization, and we've got to find ways to leverage tools that can make us more efficient and more effective and increase productivity. I personally am not one, though, that really sits back to say that AI is going to be replacing the need for human interaction, right? It's going to enhance how we do things, in my opinion, and it's going to create for more customized solutions, in my opinion, to how we can help from a talent perspective, learning and growth perspective, and certainly an efficiency and productivity perspective.
I totally agree with you. I think it's that personalization that's so exciting about AI. And of course, there's all sorts of risks and things we need to control for and be mindful around. But fundamentally, in our learning and in our health, that personalization can be incredibly valuable in ensuring we get the right support at the right moment or the right care at the right time. So I'm totally aligned with you on that. I'm going to, very near the end of the conversation, Andrew, I'm incredibly grateful for all of your insights and time. I guess my final question, coming back to the topic of mental health in the workplace, is what are your hopes for the future of workplace mental health over the coming years?
Destigmatizing mental health, right? It's always had this stigma, okay? Everybody deals with mental health in some capacity. To me, that's a fact, right? It doesn't affect some, it affects all. And from my perspective, anything that we can do to provide tools and channels and awareness, right? Whether it's the Unmind tool that obviously we're so very proud that we have, whether it's some of our EAP tools, whether it's the ERGs that we create that just allow opportunities for employees to engage and share some of their perspective, right? For me, we need to really allow for channels for employees to engage, share their stories, know that there are other people in the workplace that are feeling or dealing with some of the same things that they're dealing with. And with that awareness, right, and with that commonality and trust among colleagues, then I think it allows people to really recognize that they're not in it alone. They absolutely have resources that can help them. And it'll be a continued evolution for Viatris, as I'm sure it will be for many other companies too, right? Yeah. I mean, for me, our employees are our greatest asset. We are well aware of that. We've got great products. We've got over 1 billion patients that we touch worldwide with our products on an annual basis. But at the end of the day, if our employees aren't at their best, if they're not healthy, if they're not engaged, if they're not productive, really that's where then the company falters. And we're fully committed from a leadership perspective, through an HR perspective, to continue to evolve all of our offerings from a health and well-being perspective, specifically mental health, to ensure that the awareness is there, the education is there, and there are outlets and tools for people to leverage to ensure that they too can find their balance, as we mentioned earlier in our dialogue. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that we've still got work to do, haven't we, around reducing stigma, and it's absolutely a mission that we can all align around. So, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Nick, no, thank you for your partnership. I look forward to talking with you in the near future. Thank you so much, Nick. It was a great time.
Thank you for listening to Lead From Within, brought to you by Unmind. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Leave us a like and please do review if you found it valuable. Follow Unmind on LinkedIn for updates on all things regarding leadership, performance, and well-being. To find out more about Unmind's workplace well-being solutions for enterprise businesses, please go to unmind.com. That's unmind.com. Thank you and see you next time.